Bereshith chapter 16. And Sarai, Avram's wife, had borne him no child, and she had a Mitzrite female servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Avram, "See, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please go into my female servant. It might be that I am built up by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Avram's wife, took Hagar her female servant, the Mitzrite, and gave her to her husband Avram to be his wife, after Avram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said to Avram, "My wrong be upon you. I gave my female servant into your bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Let Yahweh judge between you and me." And Avram said to Sarai, "See, your female servant is in your hand. Do to her what is good in your eyes." And Sarai treated her harshly, and she fled from her presence. And the messenger of Yahweh found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's female servant, where have you come from, and where are you going?" And she said, "I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "See, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Yishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. And he is to be a wild man, his hand against everyone and everyone's hand against him, and dwell over against all his brothers." And she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, "You are the isle who sees," for she said, "Even here have I seen after him who sees me." That is why the well was called Be'er Lakai Roi. See, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Avram a son, and Avram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Yishmael. And Avram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Yishmael to Avram. Bereshith chapter 17. And it came to be when Avram was 99 years old, that Yahweh appeared to Avram and said to him, "I am El Shaddai. Walk before me, and be perfect. And I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you." And Avram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, "As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Avram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. And I shall make you bear fruit exceedingly, and make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I shall be their Elohim." And Elohim said to Abraham, "As for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you guard between me and your seed after you. Every male child among you is to be circumcised. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male child in your generations, he who is born in your house or bought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant." And Elohim said to Abraham, "As for Sarai your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bahrak her, and also give you a son by her. And I shall bahrak her, and she shall become nations. Sovereigns of peoples are to be from her. And Avraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Is a child born to a man who is 100 years old? Or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? And Avraham said to Elohim, Oh, let Yishmael live before you. And Elohim said, No, Sarah, your wife is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Yitzchak. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Yishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bahrak him, and shall make him bear fruit, and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Yitzchak, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Avraham. And Avraham took Yishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, every male among the men of Avraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day, as Elohim told him. And Avraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Yishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Avraham and his son Yishmael were circumcised that same day. And all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. Bereshith, chapter 18. And Yahweh appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre, while he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and saw 3 men standing opposite him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, Yahweh, if I have now found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And let me bring a piece of bread, and refresh your hearts, and then go on. For this is why you have come to your servant. And they said, Do as you have said. So Avraham ran into the tent to Sarah and said, Hurry, make ready 3 seah of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Avraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took curds and milk, and the calf which he had prepared, and put it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. And they said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, See, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life, and see, Sarah, your wife is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door which was behind him. Now Avraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure my master being old too? And Yahweh said to Avraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I truly have a child, since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time I am going to return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh. And the men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom, and Avraham went with them to send them away. And Yahweh said, Shall I hide from Avraham what I am doing, since Avraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be bahrak in him? For I have known him, so that he commands his children and his household after him, to guard the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and right ruling, so that Yahweh brings to Avraham what he has spoken to him. And Yahweh said, Because the outcry against Sodom and Amorrah is great, and because their sin is very heavy, I am going down now to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I know. So the men turned away from there and went toward Sedom, but Avraham still stood before Yahweh. And Avraham drew near and said, Would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to act in this way, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be it from you. Does the judge of all the earth not do right? And Yahweh said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, Look, please, I who am but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of the city for lack of 5? And he said, If I find there 45, I do not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again and said, Suppose there are found 40. And he said, I would not do it for the sake of 40. And he said, Let not Yahweh be displeased, and let me speak. Suppose there are found 30. And he said, I would not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Look, please, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are found 20. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, Let not Yahweh be displeased, and let me speak only this time. Suppose there are found 10. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 10. Then Yahweh went away as soon as he had ended speaking to Abraham. And Abraham returned to his place. Bereshith, chapter 19. And the 2 messengers came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground, and he said, Look, please, my masters, please turn into your servant's house, and spend the night and wash your feet, and rise early and go your way. And they said, No, but let us spend the night in the open square. But he urged them strongly. And they turned into him and came into his house. And he made them a feast, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part, surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, and let us know them. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, and shut the door behind him, and said, Please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you, and do to them as is good in your eyes. Only do no deed to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. But they said, Stand back. And they said, This one came into sojourn, and should he always judge? Now we are going to treat you worse than them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands, and pulled Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, and they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else here, a son-in-law, and your sons and your daughters, and whomever you have in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for Yahweh is going to destroy this city. But to his sons-in-law he seemed to be as one joking. And when morning dawned, the messengers urged Lot to hurry, saying, Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand, and his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters, Yahweh having compassion on him. And they brought him out, and put him outside the city. And it came to be, when they had brought them outside, that he said, Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, Oh no, Yahweh. Look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your kindness, which you have shown me by saving my life. but I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. Is it not a small matter, and let my life be saved?" And he said to him, "Look, I have favored you concerning this matter also, without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there." So the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. And Yahweh rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Amorah from Yahweh out of the Shamayim. So he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt. And Abraham arose early in the morning to the place where he had stood before Yahweh, and he looked toward Sodom and Amorah, and toward all the land of the plain. And he looked and saw the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came to be, when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, that Elohim remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. And he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. And the firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as is the way of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him, so that we preserve the seed of our father." So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. And it came to be on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, "See, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight as well, and you go in and lie with him, so that we keep the seed of our father." So they made their father drink wine that night as well, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father, and the firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He's the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. Bereshith. Chapter 20. And Avraham departed from there to the land of the Negev, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. And Avraham said concerning Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." And Avimelech, sovereign of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But Elohim came to Avimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, "See, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." However, Avimelech had not come near her, and he said, "Yahweh, would you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, 'She is my sister,' and she, even she herself said, 'He is my brother'? In the integrity of my heart and in the innocence of my hands I have done this." And Elohim said to him in a dream, "Though I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, and so I kept you from sinning against me, for this reason I did not let you touch her. And now return the man's wife, for he is a Navi, and let him pray for you, and you live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall certainly die, you and all that are yours." So Avimelech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and spoke all these words in their hearing. And the men were greatly frightened. And Avimelech called Avraham, and said to him, "What have you done to us? In what have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and on my reign a great sin? You have done matters to me that should not be done." And Avimelech said to Avraham, "What did you have in view that you have done this matter?" And Avraham said, "Only because I said, 'The reverence of Elohim is not in this place, and they shall kill me for the sake of my wife. And yet she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife." And it came to be, when Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, This is your kindness that you should do for me. In every place, wherever we go, say of me, He is my brother. Then Avimelech took sheep and cattle and male and female servants and gave them to Abraham. And he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Avimelech said, See, my land is before you. Dwell wherever it is good in your eyes. And to Sarah he said, See, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. See, it is to you a covering of eyes before all who are with you and before all others, and you are cleared before everyone. And Abraham prayed to Elohim, and Elohim healed Avimelech and his wife and his female servants, so they bore children, for Yahuwah had closed up all the wombs of the house of Avimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife.